Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. Today, we are taking a look at workarounds. So let's take a look at the outline for today's webinar presentation. We'll start with some introductions, then we'll define a workaround as we see it for today's purposes. We'll look at a couple of topics here under that workaround definition. We'll include how to use RoomKey without internet, how to preset clerk permissions, how to retain an advance deposit for prepaid reservations, and how to sell packages without a two-way GDS interface connection. And we'll wrap it all up with a summary and Q&A for today's presentation. So getting started with our introductions, my name is Tasha Leclerc. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tam. During today's presentation, I will be presenting the slideshow on screen and doing live demonstrations in a demo database in RoomKey. And William will oversee the chat and Q&A function inside the webinar presentation. Now, everyone joining today's live presentation is muted, but if you have a question at any point throughout the presentation, go ahead and click that Q&A button. You'll be able to ask a question or type in a question there, and William or I will be able to answer either live during the presentation, or we can use any remaining questions for our Q&A at the end of the presentation. Now, a couple of things to note about today's webinar is that it is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be made available on our support website later this week. Anyone who has registered for our webinars will receive a notification once that recording is available on our support website. For those of you attending our live presentation, a survey is issued at the end of our presentation. Please take a couple of moments to answer quick couple of questions. I think there's only 3 questions on that survey, but we do appreciate any feedback you're able to provide to us, as well as any suggestions you'd like to make for future webinar presentations. So getting started with our webinar, with defining what a workaround is for our webinar presentation, we define it as a method to achieve outcomes outside the standard software functions inside RoomKey. Now, that means that we have some standard functions that come available out of the box with RoomKey software. If you want to achieve an outcome that is outside of those standard functions, we recommend a workaround method that involves steps that you need to perform manually or setup that needs to be created inside the database in advance in order to achieve that outcome. Now, with all outcomes, there are some risks that are involved with using these workaround methods. So we'd like to identify those as well as we go through with describing the methods that we'll see in today's presentation. So let's get started with our very first workaround method. The first one we're going to look at is how to use RoomKeyPMS without internet. Now, RoomKey does require an internet connection in order to operate its standard functions inside the software. So when you log into RoomKey, at that instant, you do require an internet access. But if the internet goes down at your property temporarily, or if you don't have access to the internet, we can still manage these standard functions, things like checking in and out guests, managing housekeeping room statuses, and checking your inventory. Now, the workaround method that we recommend in order to achieve these outcomes is using the Smart Files backup reports. You can view your arrivals, departures, in-house guests, as well as future reservations made and any inventory for the next 2 weeks. And most importantly, you can also view your housekeeping room statuses from those reports. Now, the outcome of this, of course, is that you are able to manage guest arrivals and departures and update housekeeping room statuses manually until you are able to access the internet again. So this is a temporary or workaround method that we recommend in an emergency situation where you lose access to the internet at the front desk there, for example. Now, one of the risks here that we can identify is that once internet is restored, you may forget to update certain information. So it can be helpful to have those reports printed in order to record any changes manually on a printed document. And that way you can cross-reference anything that is recorded manually on that printed document with what has been updated, what you are able to update inside RoomKey once you have access to the database. So let's dig into this workaround method in a little more detail. So the first thing that I wanted to identify is in order to use this workaround method, you need to be able to find your smart file backup files. Those lists of reports are available to access directly from your login page. So when you open up RoomKey, you're often asked for your login name and password. If you do not have access to the internet, you will still have access to this smart file backup button. When you click on the Smart File Backup button, a pop-up will appear. It shows you the file location where those backups are stored, and it will show you all the different reports. So you've got arrivals, departures, in-house, etc. And then it will also let you know the last time that those files were backed up. So circuit, circled here, we have the created on date and time. Now, these files automatically back up as you're using RoomKey during regular front desk operations or regular usage of our software. Backups automatically update every 6 to 12 minutes as you operate RoomKey, and each computer that uses RoomKey will have a copy of the Smart Files backup. So this is an older example from back in June of this year, and it lets me know the last time that those files were backed up there. Now, if you'd like to print or view these reports, I have some examples here of what those reports look like. The ones that you'll use most often to manage your arrivals and departures and in-house guests are these first three reports, your arrivals, departures, and in-house guests here. These are examples from a database, so I've just redacted some of the key pieces of information. But here you can see on your reservations report that you would have a list of all of your reservations that are due to arrive on today's date. And it will also note if there is a room number. If there are no room numbers assigned, those are pushed up to the top. So you know if there are any reservations that are yet to be assigned a room number for those arrival guests today. It will also list the type of room that the guest is due to arrive into, the guest name, check-in, check-out dates, the reservation ID, as well as the rate and occupancy, the number of adults and children in the room. Likewise, you have the same information available to you for your reservations that are checking out, your departure reservations, as well as your occupied rooms. So any of the guests that have already checked in or are already staying over and are marked as in-house in the database. So as you go through, it is still recommended that you notify guests that if they're coming down to check out, if they'll be a part of the reservations departing report, you'll want to let them know that there is a technical issue and that you'll have to issue their checkout or their folio manually. Likewise, if the guests are arriving, you can let them know that there is a technical issue preventing you from actually checking them into the system, into the live system. So you'll be operating using the arrivals list here. You may want to also let them know that there may be a delay in processing a credit card authorization, refund, or payments. You will need to wait until your internet access is restored in order to use the credit card functionality if you have a credit card interface with RoomKey. Now, one of the things that you can do if you want to generate a copy of the guest folio, whether it is a arrival, departure, or in-house guest, you can use this button on the Smart Files backup. It says show as grid, and that will show the list, these reservations in a list or grid format with the option to print a copy of that guest folio. So not only do you have access to reporting as far as arrivals, departures, and reservations, but you also have access to any associated folios or any folios associated with those reservations. One last thing I'd like to point out here is the ability to manage those housekeeping statuses manually. So if you're using the housekeeping report from that list of Smart File Backups report, this will show the housekeeping reporting that is available inside RoomKey. For these housekeeping reports, it will let you know the room number and type, which has been selectively redacted here. It will let you know the occupancy status of that room. So for example, it'll tell you if the room is occupied or if it is vacant or if it is set as an arrival or due in for that date. You can use this housekeeping report to cross-reference with those other reports like your in-house guest report, your arrivals and departures report as well. Now on this housekeeping report, if the room is occupied, it will let you know the name of the guest, so that allows you to cross-reference with your in-house guest report. And it will let you know if there is a designated checkout time and the number of guests in that room. Now, as the housekeepers are continuing their cleaning and daily cycle, if the housekeepers let you know, when the housekeepers let you know that a room status has changed, you can record that manually on this report. And then when the internet access is restored, you can log into RoomKey and update the housekeeping statuses from the housekeeping module. Now, this may be something done at the front desk, or it may be done by a housekeeping manager. So those are just a couple of methods that you can use to operate RoomKey manually. If in the event that you lose access to the internet temporarily and are then required to update the system manually after internet has been restored. Now let's take a look at our second workaround method. This is the ability to preset clerk permissions. Now, the standard functionality in RoomKey for clerk permissions is based upon main user roles in the clerks module. So these main user roles are used to grant a standard set of permissions based on one of three main user roles. That could be owner administrator, it could be a clerk user role, or it could be an accountant user role or designation. Now, the workaround method that you can use inside the same module, the clerks module itself, is to add a user and customize these permissions for each unique role that you have at your property. Then you can use the copy and paste permissions function to add custom permission settings to each of your users. So for example, if you have a if you have a front desk agent and a front desk manager, and those have two different sets of permissions that you would like to standardize for all of your staff, you can use this workaround method to customize and standardize this for your own property. Now, the risk associated with this workaround method is if you forget to match the main user role designation. Let's take a deeper dive and take a look at this in a database so we can see how this workaround method can be used or applied to your property. Just going to jump over here to RoomKeyPMS. There we go. So I have a demo database here, and the module that we're using is found in System Configuration, inside the clerks module itself. So once I open up this module, you'll see that this has an example of those different user roles that are customized for this property. So I have a user role for a front desk agent, a housekeeper, a front desk manager, and a housekeeping manager. And I've created separate users with login information used. And for each of these users, I've gone ahead and I've customized the permission sets. So when I created the front desk agent user, I used the permission settings on the permissions tab to add or give and take permissions that suit this user role at this property. So this is a customized user role. So when I hire a new user or a new staff member, I have an example down here. Mr. Peter Powell is a new staff member and he is a front desk agent. So I've created his clerk ID and login name and password here as a brand new user. And I'm going to go up to the top here to my front desk agent user role, right-click on that user role and select copy. That will copy those permission sets and allow me to go to Peter Powell, right-click, and paste those users' permission sets directly to his clerk ID. RoomKey confirms that those permissions have been granted successfully. So when Peter logs in using his new login name and password, he will have the exact same access as a front desk agent. Now, if Peter is an existing staff member or being hired for a new role, perhaps he is promoted to a front desk manager or front office manager role, you can use the same methodology. Right-click and copy those permissions. Right-click and paste those permissions. But I want to show you something that is of note, and this is the risk that I identified here. When I try and paste these permission sets from the front office manager role to Peter Powell's clerk ID, I get this warning message letting me know that I need to select a user with a similar user role. And the reason that that warning message occurs and does not allow me to successfully paste those permissions is because this user role designated to Peter is actually a clerk user role. You can see it is selected as clerk here, whereas the front office manager permission set is based upon an owner admin user role. So in order for me to give these permission sets to Peter, I do need to change his main user role first. So I'll select his clerk ID, click modify, and change his main user role to the owner administrator role, and click OK. Now that I've done that, I can now go back to my permission sets, right-click and copy those permission sets, and locate Peter Powell, right-click and paste those permission sets. And that now allows me to successfully grant those permission sets to Peter Powell for his new user role associated with the front office manager. So a couple things to note there whenever you are managing or using those preset clerk permissions to work around or customize permissions for the different roles that are unique to your property. Let's take a look at our next workaround method. And that is the ability to retain an advance deposit. So a couple of things to note about the standard functionality inside RoomKey. In this case, when we refer to an advance deposit, that is essentially a payment that is recorded on a reservation before check-in. Now, a few things to note about payments is that they cannot be recorded on a guest folio before a reservation is made. Guest folios do not exist without an existing reservation, so you have to make a reservation first before you can record a prepayment. The other thing to note about payments is that they cannot be transferred between reservations before or after check-in. So before check-in, you can record a payment, but you cannot transfer that to another reservation. Likewise, after checkout, if there is a payment recorded on the reservation, you cannot transfer that to another reservation if the original reservation is already checked out. Now, the workaround method that we recommend is to use the City Ledger module. And essentially what we're going to be doing is creating and managing gift certificates. So a payment recorded in the system without an existing reservation, we would want to issue a gift certificate so that that gift certificate can represent a payment that has been used, that can be used towards a future reservation. Another way that we can use this, of course, is that you can issue a gift certificate if a prepaid reservation is canceled, but you want to allow that guest to use that prepayment for a future reservation if, of course, they have not decided upon another time to visit your property. Now, the outcomes that we're looking at to achieve here include that the guests can prepay for their stay before a reservation is made. Great example of that is of course the standard understanding of a gift certificate, where you may have someone purchasing a stay or prepaying a certain amount for a stay and gifting that to a recipient. And then, of course, if a guest cancels a prepaid reservation, you want to make sure that that prepayment can be used towards a future reservation. Now, one of the risks that we can identify here is that you may forget to redeem the gift certificate. You may issue it and then forget to redeem it. I'm going to take a look at a couple of methods here using the City Ledger tool that allow you to kind of record and try and keep track of that information of when a gift certificate is issued and making sure that it is redeemed. So let's dig into this workaround method in a little more detail. I'm actually going to go back to our demo property we were looking at here in RoomKey. And before I take a look at the gift certificate, the gift certificates inside City Ledger, I just wanted to note that there is some setup that you'll need to create inside the database first before we go through and use this workaround method. So in system configuration, you'll go to the transaction codes module. And in this database, if I use the drop-down menu here to select payment, I'm going to scroll down through the list of available payment methods. And you'll notice that I have a payment method called gift certificate. This is created with a cash transaction subgroup. And the associated account I have here is for the gift certificate. So I'm recording these separate from my regular payment methods like American Express or Visa credit card payments. This is a different type of payment recorded separately so that my accounting team knows it is associated with gift certificates and not a credit card or cash payment. So you will need to set up this type of transaction code as a payment transaction code here in the transaction codes module. Let me just exit out of there. And the other setup that you'll need to create found in the operations menu will go directly to City Ledger or F8 on your keyboard. In the City Ledger module, you'll want to create a City Ledger account called gift certificates. Now, some properties will want to keep or want to have a designation between their gift certificates versus any retained advance deposits. So if you wanted to have that separate designation, you can create two separate City Ledger accounts, one for gift certificates and a second account strictly for the use of retained advance deposits. This database uses just one account for these purposes here. So once you have created your transaction code and your gift certificates City Ledger account, you can now use these to issue and redeem gift certificates. So the first example I'll show you is if a guest wants to prepay for a future stay. This is an example of selling a gift certificate. So I'm going to start from this gift certificates module. I'm going to double click on the account here in the City Ledger. You'll go to the Invoices tab and you'll click New Invoice. You'll see a new invoice appears at the top with a unique invoice ID, today's date, and the name is gift certificates. You can double click on this account, and a couple things that I recommend you edit here include the invoice name. You might want to change the invoice name to the recipient of the gift certificate. If it is not a specific person's name, you may just give it the name of the purchaser, so whoever is purchasing the gift certificate. So I'm just going to give it a name here. We'll sell it to my sister, Sarah, and click Save. So that will update the invoice name, and it makes it really easy to find either the recipient or the purchaser of that invoice or of that gift certificate. Now, if I am purchasing this gift certificate for Sarah, the next thing that I need to do is record a payment. So I'm going to be paying for this using my credit card. I'll click Pay Invoice. I have a Visa credit card that I'm going to use, so I'll select that as my payment or my transaction code. I can then enter in my credit card information. I have a test credit card that I can use for demo purposes today. And I'm going to create a gift certificate for $100. Great. So I'm going to use this Visa and click OK and yes. And I'm going to post the full payment amount of $100 to this invoice. There is a credit card interface associated with this database. So this is now going to show me the approval for that credit card processing. Excellent. And I now have that recorded as a payment. So whenever Sarah is ready to make her reservation, she can call into the property, make her reservation. Once she arrives at the property, she will provide her gift certificate or her name. We can record that as a prepayment. So let me show you what that looks like as well. So just before I leave the City Ledger here, I just wanted to show you there's Sarah Leclerc, and her invoice balance is $100 because that is a prepayment that is recorded without the reservation. So I'm just going to exit out of the City Ledger here. Now, when Sarah calls to make her reservation, I'm going to be a front desk agent and select New Reservation. We'll just make the reservation for today to make it easy. Have the guest Sarah arriving today, and we'll select the room type and rate for her stay. We'll just use the best available rate here for the SK room type. On the guest info tab, we can record Sarah's information. And a little note here, I might recommend that you use the res note field to record if the guest intends to pay with or a portion of their stay with a gift certificate. If your property uses gift certificate numbers, you can record that as well as part of this reservation note. Guest will pay with gift certificate. There we go. And then depending on the credit card details that you require for guarantee, you can record that here. I'm just going to say that this is recorded to a Visa credit card. Great. So Sarah Leclerc is checking in today, and we can see her reservation here. I also see there is a note that the guest will pay with a gift certificate or GC. So when I go to check in Sarah, I wait until the reservation, or I wait until she arrives and presents me with the gift certificate information. If she has a paper gift certificate, or if there's an email recording that there is a gift certificate that has been issued for her usage, I'll wait until she presents that as part of her check-in. And I can actually double check if that gift certificate matches the amount if I double check on the city ledger. So to double check, I'll go back to City Ledger or F8 on my keyboard. I'll look in the gift certificate account. I'll just double click on that account here. And when I look at the Invoices tab, I should be able to locate Sarah Leclerc, and I can also see what that balance is at a glance here. Now, in order to redeem this gift certificate, I'm going to double click on the certificate or the invoice here. And when I look at the payment record, I can see that it was originally paid with a Visa credit card. I can click Pay Invoice. And this time I'm going to use the gift certificate payment code. And I'm going to just use this reference field to say redeemed. And enter the amount. You'll notice here that the balance will be $100. You want to enter that as a negative amount when you are redeeming the gift certificate. Right. So you'll see the original payment is the Visa, and then when the gift certificate is redeemed, it will appear as a negative amount. That appears here in the invoice for that gift certificate City Ledger account. So I can simply close out of this City Ledger or exit. And then here on Sarah Leclerc's reservation, I can record that payment using the gift certificate here on the guest folio. I'd simply click Post Payment, And instead of using the guest credit card, I'm going to change it to the gift certificate. And I can use the reference fields here. You can redeem or gift certificate redeemed here. The other thing you may choose to do is reference that invoice number. So you might say from, and you can record that invoice ID. That is optional, but that can be helpful for the accounting purposes. Now, when you are recording this gift certificate as a prepayment on the guest folio, you'll want to record that as a positive amount. So $100 is entered here, and you'll click OK, exit. Great. So now you can see that that is recorded as a payment using the gift certificate. And that was issued from a specific invoice ID from the city ledger. So that just helps the accounting team kind of record those. Now, for the accounting purposes, if you'd like to see this, how these appear as for the accounting side of things, these do appear as part of the reports in the financial section as part of the transaction register balance reporting. I'm just going to show the detail with guest names. So here is where it will show the gift certificates that were either issued or recorded as payments. Because the $100 was recorded inside the gift certificates module, or sorry, the City Ledger module, specifically the gift certificates account, that payment was using a Visa, and that will also show up here and specify that that was for the purchase of gift certificates. So all of those details do appear as part of the transaction register balance reporting there. Now, if you have a guest that is canceling their reservation and you want to retain that advance or prepayment that they've recorded, I do have an example of how we can do that using gift certificates as well, or if you wanted to use a separate City Ledger account. I'm going to use another example reservation here. I have this reservation for Tina Brownstone. She is due to arrive September 1st, and if I take a look at her folio, I can see that she has a prepayment using a MasterCard here. Now, Tina, for whatever reason, needs to cancel this reservation. We want to allow her to retain that advance deposit to be used towards a future reservation, but she does not have a specific date in mind that she will return. So we're going to issue a gift certificate in this example. So in order to do that, I'm just going to make sure that I note the res ID, so that's 2789, and also the guest name, so Tina Brownstone in this case. I'm going to start with posting a payment so that we can cancel the reservation without refunding the amount back to the MasterCard because we want to retain this prepayment. So I'll click post payment. And instead of refunding to the guest credit card on file, I'm going to change it to the gift certificate transaction code. And I'm going to say issued for a prepaid reservation. And I'm also going to note the res ID here. So this is res ID 2789. Again, that's just helpful for the accounting team because they will see these reference fields as part of their reporting. Now you'll notice that the amount is already recorded as negative amount when we record this or when we're issuing from the guest folio itself. So you'll click OK, exit. Great. So we've issued that for this prepaid reservation, and I can go ahead and I can cancel this reservation. Just going to say that the guest has a change in plans. There is no penalty in this case, so I'm just going to click cancel res. If there is a cancellation penalty noted here, I would recommend that you select cancel res instead of cancel and charge. We don't want to charge them a cancellation fee. So that reservation is canceled. There we go. And it does show on my canceled screen here with a cancellation number. If I take a look at the guest folio, I still have those two line items. I have the original prepayment that was made using the MasterCard, and then a gift certificate that was issued for this prepaid reservation. Now I need to record this as a gift certificate, or if you have created a separate City Ledger account for advanced deposits, you'll go ahead and open up the operations menu and access City Ledger or F8 on your keyboard. Locate that account. In this case, we'll use gift certificates. I'm just going to double click on that account. And over to the Invoices tab, you'll select New Invoice. Now, just like we saw before, you'll have a new invoice ID recorded here with the invoice today's date as the invoice date and the invoice name. I'm going to double click on this new invoice, and I'm going to change that invoice name to record for my guest name. The other thing you might want to do, if this is a retained deposit for a specific canceled reservation ID, you might also want to note that res ID here. And save. Next, you'll go to the Payments tab and click Pay Invoice. This is where we will record that gift certificate that we issued for this guest. So you'll change the transaction code to gift certificate. And we want to make sure that this is noted as issued for a specific reservation. So exactly what we typed into the guest folio, we can note that here as well. I think I recorded that incorrectly, but I'll just double check here. It's 1289, not 27, so I'll update that on the invoice name as well. Right. And then we'll also record the payment amount, which was $250. You'll notice that this payment amount will be recorded as a positive amount when you are recording it in the payment amount field, and you'll click OK. You'll post the full payment amount to the invoice. And that will now appear as a line item on this Payments tab. I'm just going to close out of here, and that will show us our invoices for the gift certificates. We can see that this is associated with a specific reservation and guest name, and the amount is $250. So when Tina is ready to make her future reservation, let's say 2 or 3 weeks from now, she's going to make a new reservation with specific arrival and departure dates. We can use that same method to redeem that gift certificate that was issued in lieu of the advance deposit that was made for her original reservation. So a couple different methods that you can use to retain any prepayments outside of a guest cancellation or a payment without a specific reservation there using the City Ledger module and a special account created. This one, the example we used was gift certificates. Great. I'm just going to exit out of here and head back to our presentation. Our last workaround method that we'll explore for today's presentation is how to sell packages without an established two-way GDS. Now, the standard functionality with our standard GDS connections with RoomKey is that our standard GDS only accept rate information from the Rate Wizard module. But in RoomKey, we use the packages and inclusions module to bundle our packages or bundle a rate from the Rate Wizard with a transaction code or multiple transaction codes from the transaction codes module. We use the packages and inclusions module to bundle those separate entities to create a package. Now, we did go through some detailed step-by-step information about how to create packages and inclusions in a previous webinar. If you'd like to refresh your knowledge there, definitely check out our support website. We have more step-by-step information there. But if you wanted to now distribute those packages, but you only have a standard GDS connection with RoomKey, the workaround method that we would recommend is to have both a package created in RoomKey using the packages and inclusions module, and then also create a second package GDS rate in the Rate Wizard that will represent the full price of that package on the GDS. We would actually use the package GDS rate to connect to the rate on your GDS provider, your third party, whether that be Expedia, maybe if you're using a channel manager like SiteMinder, or if you're using a standard GDS with Synexis or TravelClick iHotelier. That way, when a reservation is made on those third parties, the reservation information flows through into RoomKey with the package GDS rate, and a front desk agent is then going to manually change from the package GDS rate to the package rate. Now, the outcome for this workaround method is that the guests can book a package reservation via third-party website distributed to the GDS. So through Expedia, one of your third-party providers like SiteMinder, anything like that. And the result for the accounting team is that the package component revenue will appear separated. So you'll have a separate revenue accounted for on your reports for your accommodation versus those package components. Now, the risk for this workaround method, of course, is if you have a front desk agent or front desk team that forgets to change the rate on a reservation before the guest checks in. So in order to mitigate that, we do have a couple of tips that we'll look at as we go through and look at the steps with this workaround method. So let's take a deeper dive into this workaround method in our demo database. We return here to RoomKey. There we go. So for this demonstration, let me take a look at my arrival screen here. There we go. Now, you can do this. We recommend some of the setup here Before we look at the manual process, I wanted to show you some of the setup that is required in order to distribute packages through a standard GDS connection. One of the first things that I'm going to show you is in the rate wizard. So I'm going to go to System Configuration and select Rate Wizard. And I'm going to use our bed and breakfast package as the example. So in the Rate Wizard, our standard process for creating a package like the bed and breakfast package is to create a package base rate in the Rate Wizard that represents the room-only component of the package itself. So here I have the bed and breakfast package base rate. So noted here with base rate, and I've distributed that to a hotel website, direct, and this is billed on a daily billing period. So the prices that I loaded when I click the next button are the room only price. Then I go to the next area, which would be in system configuration, and that is the packages and inclusions module. And I build the package. So I'll take that rate. Let me just move over to the inclusions side here. Here is my bed and breakfast package. This is the bundle or the tool that I use to bundle the rate component from Rate Wizard along with the breakfast component from the transaction codes menu. When I select the room types and rates, you'll see that I'm using the bed and breakfast package base rate. So it's taking that base rate from the Rate Wizard and it's going to bundle it into this package transaction. So it's bundling it with the breakfast daily package charge, so which is $25 per person. And it's bundling it into a unique package called the bed and breakfast package. So that's the setup for the package building in RoomKey. And again, if you'd like to see more step-by-step information, we do have a webinar that is devoted to how to create and manage packages in this packages and inclusions module. In order to distribute that on the GDS, I then go back to the Rate Wizard module found in System Configuration. And you'll create a second rate plan called Bed and Breakfast Package, and this will be the GDS rate. This is the one that we will connect to the through the GDS. So when you're creating this rate, you'll want to make sure that it's distributed to the GDS distribution channel. And when you load the price, this is going to be the full package price, not the room only price like you do with the base rate, but the GDS rate will represent both the accommodation, the summation of the accommodation plus the package component like breakfast. So this would be accommodation plus $25 per person for the breakfast component. Right. So this is the package GDS rate that will be connected to that rate on your third-party website, the GDS. Okay. So when a reservation appears in RoomKey, this is our example here for Tasha LeClaire. I'm just going to adjust my columns here so we can see the full information. You'll see that this reservation will come through with the bed and breakfast package GDS rate. It says the GDS rate, and of course it's coming through the GDS channel. So the manual component here for the workaround is that I need to change this rate from the package GDS rate to just the bed and breakfast package. In order to do that, I'm going to click Change Res, or I can double click on the reservation. That's going to allow me to make changes to the booking. I'll just open up here. And in order to make changes to this rate, I need to uncheck the book box. expand the list of rates, I need to change it to the bed and breakfast package. What you'll want to make sure here is that the package GDS rate and the bread and breakfast package are the same amount. And that should be done because these represent the, this has been loaded already for your bed and breakfast package rate plan in Rate Wizard. So all I need to do is switch this to the bed and breakfast package and recheck the book box next to it. That will ensure that those amounts for accounting purposes are distributed correctly between the accommodation and the breakfast component. So I can simply select OK. And now if I take a look at that rate code, let me just adjust this. I can now see that the rate code for this reservation now states that it's the bed and breakfast package. So when I check in this guest, let's go ahead and check them in. We'll just make sure we're checking them into a clean room here. Great. So that guest is now checked in, and if I take a look at their folio, it's now going to show the bed and breakfast package, that same amount that we quoted. And if I wanted to see those package components split out, what it will appear for the accounting team, let me just click Guest Folio. I'm going to display package components. Let me just zoom in here to make it a little easier to see. So you can see that those package components are going to be allocated per our requirements for the accounting team. We have a room charge and then a separate breakfast daily package charge. There's 2 adults in this reservation, so I have a total amount of $50 for that breakfast component, which then is allocated to a separate transaction code, separate from the room charge. But for the guest perspective, they would simply see the total bed and breakfast package amount showing up here. So that is it for our workarounds presentation. We've looked at a couple of examples of our workaround methods that we can recommend using our standard operations, and then a couple of workaround methods, but keeping in mind those risks that are involved when making those manual operations outside of the standard functions in RoomKey. So I'm just going to open up the floor to see if there's any questions outstanding for our presentation today. Okay, so it looks like there are no outstanding questions. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and close down our webinar. Thank you everyone for joining in for today. If you do have any follow-up questions or would like to make recommendations for future webinar presentations, please take advantage of the survey that will be issued as soon as we exit our webinar here. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.